what we're doing is really groundbreaking work. Quality teaching is a pillar of turning around school. School is where you make mistakes. I did not consider myself a top teacher until my 5th year of teaching. I was a learner continuously. Right? This is where you grow from, and this is and also where you glow from.
What is one big takeaway that you have from today? Planning for next year, what are your next steps, your personal next steps, and what do you need to do to move that from plate to ply?
So we started with our inquiry, and our question was about how we could deepen student understanding by using a visual model in our class. So we looked at our baseline data, and we saw that many of our students weren't able to articulate what they were learning in their classes and how they knew when they were successful. So we decided to try learning pathways, and what a pathway was and what we defined it as in our first iteration was kind of like a student-facing unit plan. So we have all this, we know where we're going with our students, but oftentimes our students don't know. And they were communicating to us that like learning each day by day in classes is disconnected. So we wanted to share with them the through line and the purpose of their learning, and also how do they know when they're successful. We tried different types of formative assessment, and this is a time when we really got to like engage and give each other feedback, bring and analyze student data, revise our lesson plans.
I used to think a learning pathway would only kind of just waste valuable instructional time. But now I think that it actually adds value to my instruction. And why that is, my thinking changed when kids stopped asking me, what are we doing? And the big, why are we doing this? Because they knew exactly what was expected of them and why. Here, so where it says mid-chapter results, in order for them to earn a game day, they have to score over 80%. As a class, as a whole class, score 80%. What that means is that they're encouraging each other, kind of pushing them on to score at least above a B. So that made it a lot easier for them to be like, okay, so I understand why I have to learn statistics. I understand why this is even important. So I stopped getting that why question, which was actually really nice. But I see that difference because I do teach science and I don't have one for science. Every day they ask me, why are we learning this, or what are we doing today in science, which I don't get in math.
I used to think that writing learning targets and talking about formative assessment was kind of like busy work and not that important. And you kind of had to push me to do it. But now I actually think that it's not, and I've really noticed the change in my students in terms of understanding what they're learning and what my expectations are. Thinking about student passports, that they can get passport stamps for different skills that they master, that they carry around with them.
I am Aran Hurd. I teach 6th grade English and History. So this is a digital tool that I was introduced to last semester in one of my master's courses. It's called Poplet. So we have 3 essential questions. What do I see? What does the world see? And then what power is there in sharing our stories?
So I used to think that formative assessment was what the assessment is. But now I think that a formative assessment depends on how you use it. And the nature of this has changed because instead of using it for a grade, I kind of walk around and circulate and try to see like their thinking process and try to see like what are they saying to their peers, how are they giving feedback.
All of my students have been in the United States for 1 year or less. I decided to really help my students learn English. It was a lot focusing on key terminology and connecting to their own experiences and valuing their home languages. Students became very clear in terms of their needs that they needed people to understand and respect their language, and they also needed people to understand and respect their culture. I had introduced the concept of discrimination, that term discrimination, and I had them tell their own discrimination stories. Mm-hmm. This is them introducing themselves to us. This is what they value, and also they're talking about their culture. See and read what these kids wrote because it's very, very powerful stuff. But they were saying like things they wanted from me as their teacher, and I need to learn English from you. I need you to help me with my homework. Like it was like really direct things, and so that was very powerful for me.
When you start the unit, I have the ball at the beginning, and the way I framed it to the kids is that each unit we do is like a basketball season, and each unit we're trying to win this championship. We have to, refer back to, just so that the students know that it is important, that it is something that's active, that is living, that is growing, that is part of their learning experience.
I used to think that a learning pathway was too time consuming to be able to do. And then once I kind of got some support, I got a lot of support from Tiffany, but it kind of formed into something I felt like now I think it's something you have to do. You just have to create a way for them to see what's going on. You have to create a way for them to see their own assessment. Once it came together on a final piece and they read it to themselves and read it to a partner and then we read it as a group, they were a little more interested in it. Like they were a little prouder of their poetry as an art form.
Learning pathways had to be linear, like a straight line, and I just tend not to fit in a straight line, and so I was having a really hard time with it. It felt like compliance, and it's just something I had to do. And now, after I started learning more about hypothetical graphic organizers, I kind of like decided, not this unit, but the unit before this, I morphed the two together and created this learning map, and it was an actual map as well, and it just worked really well. And so I thought, wow, you know, I think if I stop worrying about what it's supposed to look like and just kind of go with the flow, then maybe something amazing will come out of it. But one thing that did come out of it was it just became a really powerful teaching tool. And I noticed the power of it when students were asking each other what's going on, and then they were pointing to it and saying, well, we're here. And we're gonna, you know, this is what we're learning about today. Looking at why does violence happen? We started with personal stories, how they've been affected by violence. But the buy-in, it's just like through the roof. Kids are researching why trans people are hurt more than, you know, gay people. Why, you know, so they're literally able to do anything they want as long as they can connect it back to this wall.
I mean, this is my 28th year in education. For the things I've learned in the last 2 years, I wish I could go back to my first year of teaching and think, okay, now I know what teaching's about. We're all forever growing all the time, and we are lifelong learners. My introduction to this unit was, does anybody watch The Walking Dead? Okay, and then what happens if there was a zombie apocalypse? And all of a sudden the kids were like, right, okay, now we're listening to you. Within 20 minutes, Cleveland Kennedy said 31 days. And I said, how did you figure that out? He said, because this is interesting.
My name is Remy Barriola. I'm the Manhood Development Program Facilitator here at Alliance. It's a part of the Office of African American Male Achievement, our flagship program. This unit is Unit 2, Lesson 2. It's called How Do I See Myself? Our big question is right here, how could a powerful, respectable people with a history going back over 20,000 years, a history filled with invention, creativity, culture, and science, be reduced to slavery? And so what we did here was just before we got into the unit, we introduced it by just helping to reorient their minds about what Africa is and what Africa is not. Because a lot of us were surprised, as I was with some of the images, quite honestly, that this was Africa. In which ways are we accepting inferiority for ourselves in terms of our education, in terms of our neighborhoods? And so we did a community walk yesterday, and they were able to take pictures and just able to make observations. And in which ways is this a hood, in which ways is this a neighborhood? And not just leaving it there, where we're going next are solutions. How can we reverse the mindset of inferiority? And so we're going to...
Teachers using metaphor in really powerful ways, like how is a digestive system like a city?
And then there's this idea that, yes, but you can do it differently. You can have your own style. And
It makes me wish we could observe each other more. It's like storyboarding or things like using in science. I was like thinking of a billion different ways I could apply it to history or English, and it was really inspiring. I wasn't really thinking that would happen today. I agree. Not
they were able to kind of take their own, you know, personality and put their spin on it. Unique to each person, and they were able to kind of have enough freedom within it to kind of make it their own. And I think that's what made them more successful, is that you didn't all have to do it exactly the same way, which was nice.
Watching folks make it or go through the process of backward planning
it has forced me to think about how do I commit to making sure that teachers have that space to learn and grow, and what systems are in place to make sure that that's not interrupted. I think one of the other questions, these visions of 7th grade building off of 6th grade, 8th grade building off of 7th grade, and then there's just this, not just continuity of curriculum, but literally a continuity of mindset.
Takeaway today is the power of assessment to shift practices to be student-centered everywhere in every space.
I was really struck by how social justice was the class that I was in, and some way to engage with kids
Stop. Tell the larger city community that this is these kinds of transformational learning
The power of peer observation and peer feedback is so important. That's really my big takeaway.
She just got really courageous. She made a map with the young people about violence, and then she just really is letting them go and do the research. And I think she's planning her next unit, and they're like co-researchers.
I'd like to appreciate all of the teachers. I am actually very moved.
Trying to convince myself, but I just was really, really proud of what I saw. It's hard work, but Alliance is on the path to something different.
I want to thank Andy and Tiffany for coaching us throughout the year and bringing this all together.
Thank the Starts people that came. Every single room that I went in today, I saw evidence of your work in our lives and our teaching.
I want to thank all the teachers that opened up their classrooms, because it's really makes yourself vulnerable in a way that can be really scary, and at the same time it's the way that we all grow. So thank you very much for doing that, and then I also want to thank Stacey for inviting me to come here and see this amazing and powerful work.
I've been doing this work in Oakland since we opened ISM, and it's hard work because things aren't changing, but I feel and see that we really are changing our mindsets, that administrators are changing their mindsets about what students and teachers are capable of and what they need, and that we need to listen to what they need and what they value, right? So anyhow, this is a beautiful day for me. One of the few greatest days in my life, and this is honestly one of those. So I just want to thank everyone